Hello, my spooky friends. It is Stacy, and welcome. Today, I have another scar tutorial for you to try. This is a continuation of my scar series, and this is a healed burn that's going to be on the neck and the face. One of the things that makes this very beginner friendly and affordable is that there's several different kind of products that you can use to achieve the same look. If you're comfortable with using gelatin or silicone, you can use that along with eyeshadow. But today, in order to make it fun and to save money and to use products that I already have open, I'm using cotton and liquid latex. So if you want to kick it up in your Halloween and your cosplay game, stick around and we'll go ahead and get into it. To begin, I'm using strips of cotton, just unrolling some cotton balls, and I'm going to use this for the inside of the scar to be able to pull the sheet of latex over it to give it a little bit more height and lift. So soaking the cotton strips in a little bit of clear dry liquid latex, I put them onto a silicone sheet, and I then begin to tap the liquid latex in, making sure it's saturated, and then also going through and pushing those edges together to create a build and a level that rises up in the center. Now for the liquid latex sheet that's going to mimic the skin that goes over this area of the face and neck, I pour a little bit more liquid latex. I always pour more than what I need, making sure I get those edges thin and tapping out any areas that have bubbles and making sure that everything is covered. Even though there are going to be some thicker pieces in the center, that's fine, but I'm trying to leave it a little bit thin on the outer edge. Now that it's dried, I'm using a little bit of flour and I'm going over these strips. I'm making sure that it doesn't stick to itself. So if you got baby powder, flour, or setting powder, makeup setting powder, that will also work, but just be sure to push that up underneath as you pull things so it doesn't stick. Starch is another good thing to use if you don't have any of the other items that I mentioned, but you just don't want it to stick to itself because liquid latex is so unforgiving in that way. And I'm doing over the top of the sheet of the skin, and I'm pulling very slowly and pushing that flour up underneath it. Don't rush this, let it give in its own time. Just continue to push that flour up underneath it, and everything will be just fine. If you don't have a silicone mat, a plate, the biggest plate you can find, plastic or ceramic, will work just as long as the surface is not porous. Once everything is lifted, I then go over the top and the back again with a little bit more. And now you see that I have this skin-like texture. You can see up underneath it, and you can see the areas that are thin and some of the areas that are thicker. Here is a quick tip if you're needing to be portable. Put a plastic sheet over the top and then fold it just to make sure that nothing is on top of each other. So now it's time for the application, and I'm using liquid latex with a makeup sponge, and I'm pushing that onto the area of the face. Then I want to lay down those strips of cotton and liquid latex that's going to be used to build up height. So I begin to apply these on random different areas, concentrating a little bit more in the center than the outside. And this is the fun part about it. You can place these wherever you like. You can keep them close together, or you can have them separated to have more dramatic effect in the way that the liquid latex sheet is going to lay onto the skin. I add a little bit more liquid latex to make sure everything is secure, and then I begin to cut small portions of this out, making sure I try to stay as thin as possible so that the edges blend a little bit better. But once I have a piece that I think will work for the overall look, I go in and I place that onto the liquid latex, and then I just begin to fold and pull to make it look like skin that has healed. And this is very dramatic, and some of this got away from me. I've never used this technique before, but I was willing to give it a go, and I wanted to try it because I see other tutorials out there that's for silicone, which is very expensive, or gelatin that's very tricky to use, and this is less messy, and it gets you used to using and being a little bit more familiar with how to deal with liquid latex. And then I go in with a little bit more on a sponge and just tap things down that are sticking up, or there's not as secure, or there's a little bit of air up underneath it, and begin to continue to fold and pull everything around the neck and onto the ear. Once I have my ear covered with some liquid latex, being sure to protect your hair always. Use Vaseline if you have to, if this is your first time, because it will get onto everything and it will not come out of clothing, brushes, or anything that's porous or fabric. So keep that in mind when you're working with liquid latex. Protect your eyes and your hair and your clothing. Begin to wrap a small sheet of that liquid latex around the ear and just tapping again in areas that are flying away. And this is where I made a bad decision. Instead of just folding in and moving it around, I cut so I had a little bit more of a blunt edge, and I went over it with liquid latex, and then with a little bit of acetone I go over and smooth out the edges, but it was a little too thick for me to continue to sit there and rub acetone around my eye. I already have a problem with this left eye anyway, so I just decided to let it go and move on with the look. And I am not going to take my mistakes out, because I want you to see that I am not perfect, and it takes a lot of time and practice, and doing something different with liquid latex and a new look and a new technique is always going to have some up and downs with it. So I don't want my mistakes to be yours, so I keep them in so you guys can see what I go through and you don't make the same mistakes. And I'm now using my Skin Illustrator Onset Flesh Palette and going back and forth between these three colors and tapping into the deepest pockets of this liquid latex sheet, and that's going to be pushed back, so I want the shadow to sit further back. Shows a little bit more damage to the skin once something has healed, because we had this discoloration in the skin because we lost oxygen and capillaries. So I'm also going in with this mauve color, and this is from Narrative Cosmetics, which I think offer a better alcohol paint set. You get a little bit more product and also a lot more colors, and then the ability to switch out a pan. So if you need one color, it's cheaper to replace the one pan. So do check that out. I'll have that link in the description below. I'm using the mauve color just for a little bit of irritation outside the overall scar, and end with capillary of blue to push that up under the deep colors that we placed earlier, just for hyperpigmentation after skin heals, and also cyanosis, where there is lack of oxygen in the skin, will appear blue and brownish or purple in tone. And the skin that contracts and folds over each other doesn't have as much oxygen, so it's a little bit lighter in its appearance. And for that, I'm using the CANNOM Flesh Color Cream Paint in honor of a makeup artist, Academy Award winner Greg Cannon, who recently passed in May of 2025, who gave us such wonderful movies like Bram Stoker's Dracula, to The Lost Boys, as well as Benjamin Buttons and Mrs. Doubtfire. Thank you so much, Mr. Cannon. We sure do appreciate your contribution to the makeup effects world. May you rest in peace. And I'm going back over the darkest areas with just a little bit more brown tone to deepen that up. I like to work in layers. I like to build up color because it's easier to add to than take away. And a little bit of stippling from the other flesh tone Onset Skin Illustrator palette to bring more of that skin texture to the look. And save and sterilize your old toothbrushes because they come in handy for stuff like this. So here is the final look. As you can see, some of my edges got away from me. And this is more on the extremely exaggerated side of it, so I thought it was perfect for a Halloween look. And if you like this video and hanging out with me, hit every button you see, just hit them all. And if you're looking for a more affordable way to create a burn and have a latex allergy, why not check out this next one, where I created a trauma burn using Elmer's glue. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys later. Bye.